The year 2024 saw a significant shift in global terrorism trends as terrorist activities continued to evolve in both scale and scope. While some regions experienced a decline in incidents, the severity and complexity of attacks increased in others. The changing nature of terrorism in 2024 presents new challenges for security agencies and underscores the need for a comprehensive, adaptive response. In 2024, the Central Sahel region, including countries like Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger, became the epicenter of global terrorism. This region, once relatively stable, now accounts for a staggering proportion of global terrorist-related fatalities. According to the Global Terrorism Index, these three countries alone contributed to more than half of all terrorist deaths globally. Burkina Faso, in particular, experienced a sharp increase in violence, with fatalities rising by 68%. Despite a reduction in the number of attacks by 17%, each incident became increasingly severe, underscoring the growing threat of terrorist groups in the region. Meanwhile, in Western countries, terrorism-related deaths reached a 15-year low. The United States, while experiencing fewer incidents overall, saw a disproportionate number of fatalities, 76% of all Western deaths, from just 7 major attacks. These attacks were primarily linked to lone wolf actors inspired by far-right extremist ideologies, a trend that has become more pronounced in recent years. The prevalence of lone wolf attacks, which now make up the vast majority of terrorism-related deaths in the West, highlights the shifting tactics of terrorists in developed nations. Over the past 5 years, 93% of fatal attacks in these countries have been carried out by individuals acting alone. South Asia, particularly Pakistan, experienced a troubling escalation in terrorism in 2024. Pakistan saw a sharp increase in both the number of attacks and the casualties resulting from them. There were 490 attacks in the country, leading to 689 deaths, marking the 4th consecutive year of rising fatalities. The Tehrik-e-Taliban Pakistan, the country's most notorious terrorist group, saw its attacks increase by 90%, making it one of the most lethal groups globally. The TTP's ability to carry out both high-casualty attacks on military targets and more localized strikes on civilians presented an ongoing challenge for the Pakistani government. While the Middle East and North Africa regions saw a decrease in the total number of attacks in 2024, the severity of the violence remained a significant concern. The October 7th attacks in Israel, carried out by Hamas, served as a stark reminder of the persistent volatility in the region. Despite a reduction in incidents in countries like Iraq and Libya, the shadow of ISIS and its affiliates continues to loom over Syria and Iraq. Terrorist organizations such as ISIS remain a potent threat, especially in regions where local governments struggle to maintain control and security. Europe, once seen as a relatively safe haven from the worst of global terrorism, saw a troubling resurgence of violence in 2024. The number of attacks in Europe doubled compared to previous years, with 67 incidents reported. While this is still a small fraction of global attacks, the rise in lone wolf terrorism, often inspired by extremist ideologies, has become a pressing issue. Many of these attacks are carried out by individuals who radicalized online, complicating the task of intelligence agencies trying to prevent such incidents. The increase in online radicalization, alongside the use of encrypted messaging platforms by terrorist groups, has created a growing challenge for authorities. In 2024, terrorist organizations adapted their tactics to the changing geopolitical landscape. The methods employed in attacks range from suicide bombings, which continue to be a hallmark of groups like ISIS and Jamaat Nusrat al-Islam wal Muslimin, to armed assaults, vehicle ramming, and the use of explosive devices. Suicide bombings remained a preferred tactic for groups in sub-Saharan Africa, particularly in the Sahel region, where they are used to target both civilian and military targets. Meanwhile, groups like TTP and Al-Shabaab relied more on armed assaults and ambushes, often targeting government forces or local authorities. In Western countries, vehicle ramming became a prevalent method, particularly in Europe and the United States, where attackers used vehicles as weapons to cause mass casualties. These attacks were often carried out by individuals with little to no formal affiliation to organized terrorist groups, though they were inspired by extremist content online. The use of IEDs also remained widespread, particularly in conflict zones where they were employed in attacks targeting military and civilian convoys. Some countries were particularly hard hit by terrorism in 2024. Burkina Faso, as mentioned, had the highest number of terrorism-related deaths, accounting for a significant portion of the global fatalities. Pakistan, which continues to face severe instability, recorded the highest number of attacks and deaths in South Asia. The TTP's growing presence in the region and its ability to operate with relative impunity posed an ongoing challenge to the Pakistani government. Somalia, another country suffering from protracted conflict, continued to be plagued by al-Shabaab. The group's ability to carry out coordinated attacks, often with high civilian casualties, highlighted the ongoing threat posed by Islamist insurgents in East Africa. Syria, despite significant losses by ISIS and its affiliates, remained a flashpoint for terrorist violence, with groups like ISIS and Hayat Tahrir al-Sham still carrying out deadly attacks in the region. Several emerging trends in terrorism in 2024 were particularly concerning. One of the most significant of these was the rise of lone wolf attacks, particularly in Western countries. Individuals radicalized online, often through social media platforms and encrypted messaging services, were increasingly carrying out attacks independently. This trend presents unique challenges for intelligence agencies, as it is more difficult to detect and prevent attacks that are not coordinated by formal groups. Another alarming trend was the growing convergence between terrorist groups and organized crime syndicates. In regions like the Sahel and parts of Southeast Asia, terrorist organizations have started to engage in illicit activities such as drug trafficking, arms smuggling, and kidnapping for ransom. This shift has made these groups more resourceful and harder to counter, as they operate with a level of sophistication previously unseen in the world of terrorism. The use of social media for recruitment and radicalization also continued to grow. Terrorist organizations have increasingly turned to online platforms to spread their messages, recruit new members, and plan attacks. The anonymity provided by encrypted platforms has made it more difficult for authorities to track and intercept these activities. Finally, the involvement of younger individuals in terrorist activities, particularly in Western countries, has become an increasing concern. Many of these young people are radicalized at an early age, often without any direct contact with terrorist groups. Instead, they are influenced by extremist content online and through social media. The year 2024 revealed the growing complexity of global terrorism. While some regions saw declines in the number of attacks, the severity and sophistication of the violence increased. The rise of lone wolf terrorism, online radicalization, and the merging of terrorist groups with organized crime syndicates presents new and evolving challenges for governments and security agencies worldwide. To effectively combat these threats, a multifaceted approach is required, one that emphasizes intelligence sharing, the prevention of online radicalization, and robust community engagement. As terrorist groups continue to evolve, so too must the strategies used to counter them. Only through international cooperation and adaptive security measures can the global community hope to mitigate the growing threat of terrorism in 2024 and beyond.